Wikileaks The Afghan tunnels the U.S. just bombed were built by the CIA. As the Trump administration is flexing its military muscle, having stood up to Syria and its ally Russia, and while it's now relishing in the news it had dropped the nation's largest, most powerful non-nuclear bomb on a cave complex in eastern Afghanistan, one critic was quick to point out one little-known fact. Wikileaks tweeted a simple but true statement concerning the origin of the cave complex the Americans are so proud to have reportedly destroyed. Quote, "Those tunnels the U.S. is bombing in Afghanistan, they were built by the CIA," Wikileaks tweeted. The first time bin Laden had seen the Tora Bora caves, he had been a young Mujahideen fighter and a recent university graduate with a degree in civil engineering. It had been some 20 years before, during Washington's first Afghan war, the decade-long CIA financed jihad on the 1980s against the Soviet occupation, rising to more than 13,000 feet, 35 miles southwest of the provincial capital of Jalalabad. Tora Bora was a fortress of snow-capped peaks, steep valleys, and fortified caves. Its miles of tunnels, bunkers, and base camps dug deeply into the steep rock walls had been part of a CIA-financed complex built for the Mujahideen. Bin Laden had flown in dozens of bulldozers and other pieces of heavy equipment from his father's construction empire. The Saudi Bin Laden Group, one of the most prosperous construction companies in Saudi Arabia and throughout the Persian Gulf, according to one frequently told story, Bin Laden would drive one of the bulldozers himself across the precipitous mountain peaks, constructing defensive tunnels and storage depots. Wikileaks, those tunnels the U.S. is bombing in Afghanistan, they were built by the CIA. How do you like that? Linked to the tweet was a New York Times article from 2005 which described a similar cave complex in detail and added a few additional details worth noting. Tora Bora, quote, as it's known, contains, quote, fortified caves which are reported to contain, quote, miles of tunnels, bunkers, and base camps dug deeply into the steep rock walls. The tunnels were built by the CIA with the help of Bin Laden family, who constructed the complex. Also jumping in on the mockery of the Trump administration is Edward Snowden, who tweeted, quote, "The bomb dropped today in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, cost $314 million. And in a follow-up tweet also said, quote, "Those Mujahideen tunnels networks were bombing in Afghanistan. We paid for them." He too linked his tweet to the New York Times article mentioned above. Apparently, the ant farm network of tunnels built by the CIA can now be destroyed by the American military in yet another pseudo show of force meant to make the Trump administration seem tough on Syria, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda. It was said Bin Laden even helped to run the bulldozers at Tora Bora and knew the labyrinth of tunnels like the proverbial back of his hand. Financed by the intelligence agency to provide a headquarters and safe haven for the Mujahideen, the Afghani fighting force was used to prevent the Russian takeover of Afghanistan during the Afghan War. After the Russians were defeated, the same Mujahideen became known as Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. After the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, bin Laden became the United States' most wanted man. Not surprisingly, he took up refuge inside Tora Bora, within its miles and miles of complex, well-fortified tunnels. Times writer Marianne Weaver asked Masood Farivar, a former Khalis officer who had fought in Tora Bora during the jihad, to tell me why the caves were so important. Quote, "They're rugged, formidable, and isolated," he said. If you know them, you can come out and go with ease. But if you don't, they're a labyrinth that you can't penetrate. They rise in some places to 14,000 feet, and for 10 years, the Soviets pummeled them with everything they had, but to absolutely no avail. Another reason they're so important is their proximity to the border and to Pakistan. One American military leader tasked with capturing or killing bin Laden was General Mad Dog Maddox. Maddox is now the Trump administration's Secretary of Defense and appears to have attempted to destroy at least a portion of Tora Bora's system of tunnels with a drop of the Moab bomb, known as the mother of all bombs. The aging general, who's now the nation's most powerful military leader, with the exception of Trump as commander-in-chief, appears to be following through with a 16-year-old vendetta he may have been holding on to. The Times article from 2005 writes, Brigadier General James N. Mattis, along with another officer with whom I spoke, was convinced that he could have surrounded and sealed off bin Laden's liar. He argued strongly that he should be permitted to proceed to the Tora Bora caves. However, according to Weaver, the general was turned down, and the decision not to take bin Laden there at Tora Bora was one of the greatest military mistakes of the Bush administration's attempt to get him. Bin Laden escaped Tora Bora on December 16, 2001. It is also important to note that Wikileaks' tweet may or may not be 100% accurate, CNN reported. Oh yeah, well there's a nice report. The Moab bomb was dropped on a tunnel complex about 12 miles from Tora Bora. However, those tunnels likely all connected. CBS reported the airstrike destroyed several caves used by ISIS with its 11-ton ordnance. The news agency also interviewed a military expert who said the U.S. had at least 14 more Moab missiles and may be prepared to lay waste to all such cave systems. Meanwhile, on Thursday, the director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, targeted Wikileaks as a, quote, non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. The recently appointed director has apparently had enough of WikiLeaks activities, such as the March release of the CIA's Vault 7. Now they're going against WikiLeaks. I mean, this is totally incredible. And we built these caves, actually, the CIA, I mean, really? And if it wasn't for WikiLeaks, how would we find all this information out? And now they're going against WikiLeaks. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.